I will be very critical of this place always, of the empire, of their political history, of the way it behaves towards the rest of the world. But I do feel a massive level of appreciation for this place.
Miguel Torres Umba came to the UK from Colombia on a whim and went on to become a performer on the stage at the National Theatre. This is Writer's Mosaic, What We Leave We Carry, the series that tells the true life stories of migration to the UK.
My name is Miguel Hernando Torres Umba. I was born on the 8th of November 1986 in Bogota, Colombia. My childhood was marked by the place where I grew up. The neighborhood where I grew up, it's called Los Comuneros, and the neighborhood is only 4 years older than me. That means basically before my parents arrived and the community arrived, there was nothing. Literally, it was just a mountain in the south of Bogota. There was not much going on there. It was a piece of land that it was bought by a priest, and then he split it up into small allotments for people to come, sold them to people from all over the country who were kind of coming into Bogota for a very reasonable price, and then created a whole new neighborhood. So people came in, they dug the ground, they made their own sewage system, they stole water from somewhere else, they stole electricity. Public services were very limited. It allowed for gangs to form, for families to kind of be quite disjointed, for people to have to go to the center of the city to work. Amongst that, there was a group of nuns, actually. They came over with a cultural project financed by some German funders. And then they just set up a group of music, group of dance, theater. And that's kind of where I started to kind of get involved in it when I was about 8 years old. My dad was an electronic technician, so I had the chance to go with him to houses of people of different areas in the city and kind of see kids with access to more, better toys, better houses, better neighborhoods, and you'll be like, oh, that's what if I had that? I kind of had a strong relationship with religion back then, with the Catholic religion, because I felt connected with it. They help us kind of shape the neighborhood. They help us kind of form as a community and establish ourselves in that area. So that felt really good. I feel like that they were something that bonded us together. When I was growing up, I just, I love going to church. I love talking in church, putting my hand up and I have an opinion, and I would talk for ages. And that was very much allowed, and it felt good. Neighborhoods like that were constantly forming. People who were just fleeing from other areas of Colombia to find a place to live within Bogota. They just kept kind of creating neighborhoods next to each other and kind of expanding the city. I was surrounded by people who were leaders, kind of always trying to provide and help each other and help the community evolve. I think the ethos for many of us in Colombia was just salir adelante, just get by, just improve. Whatever that means, who knows? When this group of nuns and missionaries came to our neighborhood, bringing the cultural offer that they brought, that opened up a space for many young people in the community to find a life-changing line of experience. And for me, it was completely life-changing. As soon as I joined, when I was 8, that's it. I haven't stopped doing that. I haven't stopped being involved in theatre and dance, in the performing arts. I have this clear memory of one of my dance teachers saying, "Come on, mueva lo que es suyo." Move it, it's yours, with this kind of joyful energy, kind of, come on, encouraging you to do it. And every time I do something, I just have that in the back of my mind. It's mine, my body's mine. I move it, I move the way I move. I bring my energy, my passion, my excitement to everything I do. I moved into training theatre in Bogota at the university. I met a couple of friends, and their families had a different vision. And in the families, there was the idea of maybe leaving the country, maybe going to study English abroad. Leaving Colombia wasn't something that I dreamt of doing. because I never thought it was a possibility for me. I had never seen it in my family. No one in my family thought of that as an option. But it was through these friends of mine who I met, and Natalia and Fernando, and it was their families who encouraged us to think of the idea of leaving the country. I was cleaning the house, I was sweeping the floor, and then they called, and then they said, look, we got this idea, we're planning to go maybe to England. There is this thing, this credit we can apply for, and we thought maybe if you want to do it with us, would be great. And I'm like, yeah, sure, whatever, like whatever you whatever you do, I do it. You know, it's so that kind of group of friends were like, yeah, if you jump, I jump. I don't care what it is, I'm gonna do it with you. I hung up the phone and I said, Mom, I'm going to England. And she just went, but finish sweeping first. And like, you know, it wasn't really a thing that she imagined was. And then we started the process, and it all started happening. We got the credit, we got the visa, and then suddenly we were here. We were in the UK studying English. Before my friends encouraged me to come, I had nothing. I had no idea about the UK. I didn't know much about the English culture. I didn't even know what the Big Ben was. Before coming to the UK, I had only been on a plane before once, and I went to Cuba. We went to a theatre festival with this group of friends. That was the first time I experienced leaving Colombia. So coming to the UK was my second time. I packed as much as I could into my bag, so I had we had a suitcase, a rolling suitcase, and then a backpack that was just like every inch of it had something, it was so heavy. It was heavier than the other one. I'm surprised they didn't stop us. It was massive. It was like literally like behind my back, and I am a short person, so it would look even gigantic. Everything was in there. And when we arrived to Heathrow, it was a laugh, but it was just like I didn't speak English. Only one of my friends sort of spoke a little bit, so she managed to communicate and understand what the journey we needed to take was. The 2 suitcases, for whatever reason, didn't arrive, so it was only mine and our backpacks. But in a way, that was a bit of a blessing, because then we jumped on the Piccadilly line, and that was like I had never seen so many people moving that fast. Like the speed at which people were moving, we just couldn't understand. It was just a bit too fast. We had these backpacks. We felt the pressure. We're like, we need to get off. People are coming. Come on, move. It's just like, and then carrying the suitcases up the stairs. The sensation of the speed of the city, like, literally hits us. Like, when you're standing in front of a platform and you see a train passing by so fast. That's how I felt. Like, the speed was crazy. Culture shock is gigantic, because then you're very used to in Colombia people helping, or people kind of keeping an eye on you, and sometimes not for good, not for the best intentions, but generally people will also lend a hand and stuff, whereas here no one, people will just continue doing the thing, ignoring us completely. So that always felt a bit weird, which then increased the sense of speed. And then we had to change from the Piccadilly line to the Central line, now I remember, and then to the DLR. And then when we came out the DLR, it was really lovely. After Holborn, it was just nice. It was like a bit of a fresh air. And when we got to our destination, which was Shadwell, then another shock, because I was supposed to arrive to England and meet loads of English white people, and you arrive to Shadwell, and then you're just surrounded by the entire world right there, the entire Middle East, right in front of your eyes, and I wasn't expecting it, which wasn't a bad thing, but I just was shocked. And so we lived in Shadwell for a month, which was great, just in an apartment, and then we made friends with people around us. Our first best friend was Ollie and he owned a phone an internet cafe with phone services, and a shop, and a chicken shop. We love his £1, everything was £1. It was very sweet. We would go there to check on the internet, communicate with our families, call them, and then he just saw us on a daily basis. We started to become friends. We didn't understand what he was saying. He didn't understand us, but he was our first friend in London. I think he was from India. I don't know. He might not be Indian, but at the time I had no idea, and I'm sure he would have told us, but I just didn't understand. Yeah, my experience learning English, learning the language, so I realized that I had to change my mentality. And now I was here, therefore I needed to learn. I really needed to learn to communicate. So I completely changed my mentality around it, and I got really excited by learning the language. It was one of those schools that it's fine, it's accredited, it's not the top, it's not the bottom, it's just there. It was slightly disappointing, a little, at the time, because I was expecting a lot more from an institution in London. Then you start realizing, okay, not everything that we are told that comes from here comes from, from London, from England. I'm expecting this high-tech, wonderful institution, and it's just a small room with like a teacher who doesn't want to be there. What then helped me was just constantly trying to communicate with other people, really keen on doing that. I got myself involved in a play at the Old Vic within about 6-7 months of arriving, because I saw a poster and they were doing an open call, and they were looking. It was like a mixture between professionals and community performers. And they were encouraging like people who had done dance, who had dance background or physical theatre and so on. So I just came in, I did the audition, and I ended up being selected into it. So then I was, as part of this large cast, about 35 people, including about 10 professionals, and then the rest were community. And yeah, just putting myself in places where it really pushed me, it really made me understand, try to understand a little bit more, and not just from the language perspective, but it applied to something. So either that or through work. This wasn't just when I arrived, but a couple of years later, I got myself into a call center. I was doing market research, and I don't understand why they gave me that job. They shouldn't have given me that job. I didn't understand anything of what I was saying. I didn't understand what people were telling me. I was just reading from the screen badly, saying words as they are not pronounced, like literally. I think one of the things that is very common in the Colombian community, and I'm sure to many Latin Americans, is when you get an opportunity, you have to go for it. I had a responsibility, and I didn't think of it as such, but my entire body knew it. I just had to make the most out of it. I didn't have a cushion or a safety net behind me, so I just really had to work hard in the few hours that we were allowed to work as much as possible, because I also had to pay this credit that we got, for which my family was not able to pay for, and initially it was just 1 year. So I got 1 year to make the most out of it. And also coming from such a strong and resilient community, I was already in a better place, I was in London, I was able to cycle from place to place, feel safe. Sometimes in the communities where I grew up, you wouldn't feel safe walking around on your own late at night. Whereas here I felt a lot safer. Again, it's not that it's a lot safer, but it's just my reference meant that I felt safer. For a number of years, did a number of cleaning jobs, and I even doing that, I always tried to do it to the best of my ability. And then when it came to the end of that year, I wanted to stay. During that year, I went to visit a school called the International School of Corporeal Mime. Corporeal mime is a technique, a physical theatre technique. I went to the school for an evening course. The school was accredited, which meant that then we could use it to apply for a student visa. Most of their students were from overseas. Some European students, only one English student, I think, or a couple in the whole 4 years that I did. I used that to then stay for the next 4 years training. I started in the morning working at 5 a.m. in a cleaning job sometimes, then finishing that job, going into the school, training for 6 hours, and then leaving that place to then go and work in a restaurant for another 7 hours. I did all kinds of jobs. Yes, cleaning was kind of one that I did for about 4 or 5 years. Different sort of things, different offices, hospitals, shopping centers, you name it. I also worked as a rickshaw for some time, kitchen porter, worked in the kitchen in the restaurant. I worked in Lyon. I think that was the highlight for a period of time, only because me and my two friends got a job in the same restaurant, and it was a small one, which meant that some nights it was the three of us running it. So we had our little kingdom there. We're playing our own music. We're just having, Natalia was in the front, and Fernando and I were in the kitchen cooking and just having our own flow. When I was in the miming school, and this marked another big change in my life, I did get involved with two companies. One is Mandinga Arts, and Mandinga Arts is a carnival arts company. When I met them during my mime training years, and I became really good friends with them, but also then they saw what I could offer, so they kept calling me to come and perform with them every now and then. So I was already starting to do some, like, either performing with them or leading a group or doing some choreography for them. Then I also got involved with Secret Cinema. It was the first time they did Secret Cinema Presents Ghostbusters, and it was, I think, Shepherd's Bush Empire. The setup of the film is in a hotel. So we were bellboys, we were hotel staff, and, they gave us some suitcases and we were just clowning about, and they loved it. They just loved whatever we were doing. They loved it. So the directors kept calling us again. They were like, who were those those guys who were doing the clowning who were really good? They just kept calling. And then that became a thing. They really fell in love with our energy, with our performing ability. Through Mandinga, the core is a mix. And so people who were working with them were also a mix. Like some people, some Latin American people, but there were also some extraordinary musicians that were English or French, or like they had a broad group of performers and people from all over. So I always felt like quite international there. And then with Secret Cinema, that was immediately straight into a more British kind of like avant-garde. Secret Cinema started to grow into this cult thing that people were loving, and that had nothing to do with the Latin community. So I just very much just catapulted myself straight into them, and I always felt very welcome in a way, as I said, because they loved whatever we were bringing that was different from what other performers were offering. I very much felt welcome into and embraced into that group of people and communities. I'm meeting people from all over the world. Some of my great friends, English friends, like British, Scottish, like European friends, loving them. I mean, the main differences between Colombia and the UK and culture, wow, that's massive. To start, the language is a big thing. The ability to communicate fully, to share your thoughts, the humor, I don't think you can be your full self for a while when you're learning a language, because you spend a lot of time translating your thoughts, and so your full flair is not able to be expressed and understood as people in your country would. In Colombia, there's just so much joy, even though there is so much poverty and there's so much violence, there's generally loads of joy. I found a clash with simple things like being on the bus and trying to give my seat to someone. In Colombia, that's normal. You would give your seat to either a young person or an elderly person or a woman, or you would just do it. My mom would expect me to stand up and give my seat. But when I did it here, some people would just look at me and feel quite angry and offended, because I don't know what they were reading. Was I treated them? Was I saying they're too old? I don't know what they were reading, but they felt offended. So there were some of those things that I was like, okay, this is very different. So in a way, I started to feel like I needed to detach, to kind of close my boundaries a little bit more. In Colombia, you're a lot more open. Maybe too much sometimes, maybe a bit too loud sometimes, maybe too much in the life of others. You get involved in someone else's conversation very quickly. You play with kids sometimes. You play with a kid that you might see in a shopping center, and then you interact with them. Here, no, very quickly I started to realize that was wrong. Like, people would see me as a weirdo if I was interacting with someone's kid just because I would do it. So yes, I started to realize I needed to start closing my boundaries and kind of keep myself to myself a little bit more. But also, I think that's the nature of migration. I used to imagine just like a shell, the shell of an egg covering my face and covering my head, and just not being able to look up, just always covering my eyes, and then one day just a little hole opening up, and then a bit of light and coming through, and me being able to start to unpeel that shell, this kind of shell that is covering what to be able to see myself and to see how much good I'm giving and how much worth I offer. So it takes a bit of time. in order for me to start feeling fully part of this country, a change was, yes, getting a British passport. So when I became a British citizen, that changed something. I mean, and the change was very simple. Was just going through the queue in the airport and not having to do the long queue, but then suddenly I could go through the quicker one, the shorter one, and then realizing I'm the same person, nothing's changing me, I just got this new paper. So yeah, I mean, in a way, feeling validated. But just before that, starting to realize that my work and what I was doing was starting to benefit loads of people. Then when I started to add up numbers, I'm like, wow, that's a lot of people. There's just loads of people who have seen my work through the companies I was working with or a show that I directed. I'm like, the impact I'm having is considerable. In a way, for me, it was also like starting to lift up my head and started to feel like I could demand, like I can ask for. Then you start realizing, oh yeah, I need to demand for those spaces, or I can create them. Or how can I just, go and say, hey, I need funding so that I can create this space, not just for me, but for people in the community or people who look like me. My work is very much about in performing arts. I work as an actor, as a physical theatre performer, as a director, and then as a facilitator. I got to work with Gecko Theatre, who are a kind of like respected physical theatre company. I've been working with them for 5 years, touring around the UK with them. And our most recent show was Skin, and then we performed it across the UK, and then we ended up at the National Theatre in January this year, which was a fantastic achievement. But I didn't go to Colombia for the first 5 years, so it took a good 5 years before I was able to go back, which was was heartbreaking because when I left, my niece was just 6 months old, and so when I got to see her, she was not 6 months anymore, and so was my brother and stuff. Like all the changes that you lose, like the family moments that you don't get to see or have again. So that is heartbreaking. I think my life has been enriched by being here and by being able to go back and realize, I've learned lots of things of our culture that need to be changed. My understanding of things like sexism, racism has been challenged by being in the UK and being surrounded by people, realizing how our language in Spanish could be quite sexist, and we don't know. We just don't know. We don't think about it. I'm able to appreciate the richness of my life in Colombia and the sense of community by being able to go back and realize how important and how beautiful it is. It's been positive for me. It's allowing me to understand our country in a better light. Well, in Colombia right now with Venezuela, lots of Venezuelan migrants are coming back sometimes to Colombia, and here my family, or not my family, but people close by treat migrants in a way that I've been treated in this country. It's like, whoa, what's happening here, right? Why are my people doing what I'm being done to in this country? Why are my people treating migrants badly in Colombia when I'm being treated badly here? What's happening there? Why are we driven to that? I feel a Londoner for sure. I do feel a Londoner. I don't know if I could feel British, just because, again, London is not the UK, really. There's just so many other aspects to the British life that you won't get in London. London is such a particular place. In my heart, yes, I'm fully Colombian. Of course, it's in my veins, it's in my body, it's in the way I move my body. It's not. That's definitely a Colombian way. I do feel a level of love, a big level of love and appreciation to this place. I will be very critical of this place always, of the empire, of their political history, of the way it behaves towards the rest of the world. I would be absolutely always questioning it, but I do feel grateful with this place and with the life that's kind of like opened up for me, with me obviously involved. It didn't just come for free. I've worked for it. Like it wasn't just a gift. But I do feel a massive level of appreciation for this place. I live in Camberwell, so it's the perfect place to be, actually, because it's got everything, you know. It has Sanchez, which is just a Colombian shop just 5 minutes away from here, and I go every couple of days to get pan de bonos and I bring 8 pan de bonos and I have them frozen, and I just, you know, have them in the morning for my breakfast. I go to loads of the Latin music events. I mean, I follow musicians, I follow all organizations that are producing Latin events. I play loads of my Latin Colombian music. I speak my language a lot. I do speak Spanish a lot. I'm very lucky also because my partner is Colombian, so we get to speak in Spanish and English, and I think that's fantastic. We get to do both. Like we feel the same passion for both places, so it's fantastic. My housemate, Mark, he's from Newcastle. He's a director and a writer, but he is Colombian basically. He's right now in the Amazon working with communities, directing a few projects, helping. He's been doing that for 20 years. He knows Colombia more than I do. He knows more people in the cultural scene in Colombia than I do. I feel like I'm in a perfect bubble because I have access to both. Yes, I can go to Sanchez, but I can also go to Gladwell's and get some like overpriced sourdough, which is fantastic, and I love my sourdough too. So, so I got both things at my disposal. I used to cycle everywhere, and there was one, probably 4 years, 4 or 5 years into my life here. I was cycling back home after a late shift in a restaurant, and at this point, my 2 friends who I came with, they had come back to Colombia. And I remember cycling with a sense of urgency and speed. And I was like, I really have to get home, need to get home. And then something in my mind happened and I stopped. And I realized that I was like, why am I in a rush? I got no one waiting for me at home. It's no rush for me to get home. I can get whenever. And that was a bit sad, but I remember that, and I think that's part of the reality of the city, of the transient life. People come and go, and I felt constantly friends would come and go, and then you would go like, I just gotta carry on cycling, I have to carry on pedaling and getting home, but I don't know what the rush is. January this year, just sitting down by the Thames next to the National Theatre with my family. We were just having a beer, chatting to my mom and my sisters and my dad, who had come for the first time to see me. 2 sisters and my niece, who now is 17. When I left her, she was 16 months old, and now she's 17. And they came for the very first time to the UK to visit me, and then they just had seen me at the National Theatre performing this beautiful piece, and then just being out there in this place where loads of dreams began. Yeah.
Miguel Torres Umba was talking to Amanda Villanova.